Right. Okay. I think we'll start get going. Really, it's just gone 3 o'clock. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming or being there rather. My name's Chris. I coordinate the Real Bread campaign. It's part of the food and farming charity Sustain, based in London, England. We've got people from quite a few countries here, I think, today. So the mission of the Real Bread campaign is finding and sharing ways of making bread better for us, better for our communities, and better for the planet. And today is about two of those things: better for us being bakers. I can't say I'm part of that noble group, but you, and better for communities, that being the community of bakers sort of within a bakery and also generally. My co-pilot today is Abby, who runs up Sustain's Routes to Work, which is our good food job site. So if you've got a job that you want to post, or you're looking for a job in good food, including real bread baking, have a look at the Routes to Work site. So the plan today, oh, and the other thanks I've got to say, of course, is to our speakers, who I'll introduce in a minute, especially Cindy, who helped shape and bake this event. So the plan is we will have a 10-minute talk by each of our 4 speakers, and then we'll have about half an hour, take questions from you. You can post them in the chat, and we'll be trying to take some live questions as we go. Apologies if we can't get to you or we miss you. As I said, happily, there are a couple of hundred people here today, so we'll see how many we can do. And then if there's time left at the end, I'll open the floor up for people to have maybe a couple of minutes to say something. If you've done something at your bakery that's worked really well for the benefit of your staff, you want to share, go for it. Just a reminder, this event is being recorded, and we will be publishing it, we hope to. So just so you know that. And at the end, we'll be asking for your feedback, which would be really helpful. Just let us know what of this event you like, what works, what's good, and what doesn't, just to help us think about future events. So I will move on. So the first of our speakers today is Laura Bullock, who is the co-founder and the owner of Seven Hills Bakery in Sheffield, England. Laura.
Hi. Hello everyone. Thanks all for coming. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about being a living wage accredited employer. So teensy bit about me and about us. Yeah, we're a bakery in Sheffield, which is in South Yorkshire in England. And we've been going since 2011. And we went through a couple of changes, moved premises, did that and the other, and we became accredited in 2014. Is that right? I'm looking at my notes now. 2016. And for those of you who don't know what that is, there's a system: minimum wage, obviously regular minimum wage. We always aim to pay more than that, and then we made the decision that once we'd moved premises and expanded and started making a bit more money, that we would want it to be accredited. And basically it's a system of kind of socio-economic research done by the Rowntree Foundation. So they look at what it actually costs to live, and so we decided to be accredited. And so I thought I would just go through kind of the whys and the why we did it, how we did it. So I thought I'd start off with being the whys. And I guess the biggest thing why we wanted to do it was about appreciation for our staff, basically. We want everyone that works for us to feel valued, and for their job to be viable long term, which, like a lot of front of house or catering food jobs in general, like often quick turnover, and wanted to make it better for the people that work for us. And a big thank you as well. We can't run a business without the people selling the bread. There's no, people can make it, but you need people to sell it and to have everyone to have the same appreciation. And this is one way of us doing that. And how we did it. So we are a retail bakery, and we moved into bigger premises, which meant that we had bigger cafe space. We also had we have a greengrocers in there. So once we started to make a bit more money, we wanted to put that back into the staff. And it really leveled the wages out. I think that's one of the biggest things it did, because we always, as I said, always paid a bit more than the minimum, but it really leveled out the difference between the front of house people that worked hourly to the people that worked in salaries. So the first time we did it, it was quite a big hit to get everyone up to a certain thing. And I looked back and looked at the stats, and we were paying people between $7.60 at the lowest, and then the minimum went up to $8.25. So, you know, there were people that were already getting that or more, but it just really, really leveled it up basically, between those two people. And the way it works is it happens yearly, and we kind of use it, or I kind of use it as an excuse almost to do a price increase, or a way of regulating how I do that, because I think sometimes it can be, I don't know about anyone else, but quite difficult to regulate that in and make yourself do all the price checks and do all that type of thing. So I use this as a way. I know that the increase is coming up, so I use it as a way to kind of make that happen for me, and as an incentive to get the work done, for making that change. And I know roughly now what it's going to go up, so I can make a pretty broad strokes if I for some reason don't have time, or, you know, I'm busy with other stuff or whatever, can make that happen quite quickly, knowing what it's going to be. And yeah, I just think it's really mutually beneficial. I think that the staff really appreciate that, they know that they're going to get this thing. I think when people are looking for jobs, it makes a bit of a difference. I think because you're on a register. I think, you know, for staff retention, knowing that you're going to get a minimum amount, and that it's slightly more than you would get doing a comparable job somewhere else, makes a big difference as well. Gives you a bit of security, and yeah, as I said, like just making it so that people can, all the jobs in the bakery, no matter, you know, there can often be quite a divide between the people that are making the products and the people that are selling the products, naturally, because of time differences and things. But I think just knowing that there is that kind of that leveling out between the two people, between the two sides, and there's no con really. Once we did it and made it happen, it's just like the easiest thing in the world to make happen. So yeah, I think I'm doing the opposite of you, Cindy, and taking less time than I need to. Do you think I've missed anything, Chris, or anything that needs to come in? I think I've rattled through all my bits and bobs quite quickly, basically.
The event organizer's dream speaker.
I know, sorry. Yeah, I think I have. Like, it's just it's just a really, like, yeah, never ever look back. I think it's a goal, a goal to be achieved. We were so proud when we got to it, getting to the point where we could do that, because it's quite a big hit. But yeah,
we'll be taking questions at the end of the speakers, but I suppose what I would throw in now, since we have got 5 minutes, is what would you say to any bakery owner that says we can't afford to pay our staff anymore, we would just not be able to break even? And have you noticed your staff retention has improved, or your staff are working any harder as a result of the change?
Thank you. Thanks for the prompts. Yeah, retention is amazing. Yeah, we have the same people that we first employed, nearly 10 years ago now, that still work for us. And yeah, especially for the very high turnover, like Saturday jobs, for instance, like we'll have people staying for like a year and a half of going away and coming back. That was actually something I didn't talk about, was, yeah, I think that the investment in it, because, hiring, training, setting someone up on your accounts, going through the whole business, getting them trained up on your processes, that all costs you loads of money. So I think that in terms of not being able to afford it, maybe looking at some of that cost analysis of how much it costs you with a quick turnover versus maybe putting that money into the long term might make a difference as well. And I guess, yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at it really carefully into, like, you know, there's no point having a business that isn't viable, you know, for the sake of it, almost for the sake of the accreditation. And that's the other thing, like I pay for the accreditation, but you could use it as a benchmark, and you could use it as maybe as something to look towards, or a ballpark. And then if you can't do it, just be honest with who you're working with, and maybe reduce it with the aim of going up. Is something I would say about that. But yeah, I think like people really appreciate it. I know, like, you know, the staff really appreciate it. But it's, you know, it's not easy, and there's no point doing something that's, if it's going to ruin everything, ruin your whole enterprise. That's not what anyone's in for. So yeah, just be realistic about it. I think that's it.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Laura. I can see there's some questions coming in the chat. If you're not so sure about Zoom, if you sort of hover down to the bottom of your screen, you'll find where to find the chat, and you'll be able to pull that up on your screen. Abby or I will be throwing some of those in at the end of the speakers, as well as sort of your live ones. So thank you again, Laura. So going through alphabetical order by surname. Oh yes. People can clap in the sort of the sign language way, so wave your hand if you want to, or there's again down at the bottom there's a reactions thing. You can put funny little gizmos.
Thank you.
Well, don't feel obliged, but you can. So next is Mel Derbyshire, who's the head baker at Grand Central Bakery in the USA, where she oversees both the Seattle and the Portland operations. Hello, Mel.
Hello there. Thank you for having me. It was really exciting to meet Cindy and get to be invited to this brilliant conference this morning. So as Chris said, so I'm the head baker for Grand Central Baking Company. The bakery's been in operation since 1989. It's still a family-run organization, which is really amazing if you think of the history and legacy there. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've been baking for about 22 years, and my journey at Grand Central Baking Company started in the dish pit room. So I needed a job, my friend was in Portland, and started in dishes I'd never baked, but I was enamored by the process, and I just harassed the head baker to give me the next pastry job. And I did pastries and then bread, and then worked my way up and did a lot of reading and classes. And over, you know, the last 22 years, finally found myself up at the Seattle bakery running that operation. The title of, you know, being the employee's ambassador, I think is driven from where I came from, you know, because I started in the dish room, which is, you know, a place where, you know, it can be disregarded and not respected. And so I've kind of taken that hard work and ethic and applied it into my management and training style. So over the years, I've been an advocate for wages, not only all my sourcing. So we do source, I know there's a lot of bakers out there, but we pride ourselves in our sourcing. We source like 2.4 million pounds of local flour, which is a pretty big accomplishment for a bakery of our size. But over my years, I've really worked hard to train bakers to be the best bakers they can. And that means by teaching everybody to be able to do all aspects of baking, because that gives a sense of accomplishment. It trains people to have a skill that they can take anywhere. It also makes for better bakers, because if you know how to do every step, you're going to be able to make better bread. And as we've grown, you know, we've become the need for equipment that makes our jobs easier. So I've worked on like ergonomics, spacing, the whole gamut to try and make the bakery a better place to be for the employees. The last 10 years I've been in Seattle, and when I came to Seattle, the bakery was had lost a little step in the world. And so part of my job was to come up and fix it. It wasn't really broken, but it had been not run very well. It kind of lost its edge in the Seattle baking scene. So I came up to basically, as a consultant, to try and get it going. And one of the main things that I discovered was there was a disparity between the female bakers and the male bakers. The women tend to make a little less money. They also weren't able to, that's not the right word. No, the women didn't mix or run the ovens. And so that was a big problem for me. So I spent the first couple of years trying to undo that dynamic by giving everybody the same opportunity to become the best baker they can. So focusing a lot on the female team, talking to them, finding out whether they wanted to do those tasks, you know, because maybe they didn't. To the stage now where I only have 31 bakers now because of COVID, but back in the heyday, we have 45 employees who can do every aspect of baking. A lot more female bakers in Seattle than the Portland operation, but really dedicating myself to encourage everybody to be the best. The part of my job, which is challenging, can be challenging because I work, you know, for a company as we have owners and managers, and as we've grown, sometimes there can be a disconnect between that, you know, which is inevitable. And I work for a really great company. We have competitive wages, we're B Corp, we do a lot for sustainability, but sometimes there can be a little gap from the management to the worker-bees. And so what I've done is really kind of put myself in a position where I'm always advocating for the employees, and sometimes doesn't make me very popular, but it's important for me to have a voice because we're at a stage now where we have a lot of employees, and I want to make sure the dishwasher is recognized and has everything they need to do their job. The bakers have everything they need to do their job. And whether we're talking about policies, wages, how we communicate to our employees through social media or internal communication, I try and be that person that keeps the humanity into management, because it can become very tactical and strategic. And so I try and bridge that gap. And I think that it's proven to be successful. We have really good retention. I've got a lot of amazing bakers who could probably get jobs anywhere in the world. And I think that as companies grow and we have a lot of legacy in our management team, it's good to have somebody who's like, hey, what about this? You know, to keep everybody on our toes. And I think once you go from being an hourly employee up to management, you can get lost in the management fray. And I think where I came from really helps. It's helped me be successful and also be the best advocate for our employees. And I think there's some positive impact to be seen there. And I think there's some of my coworkers are on here, and hopefully I'm not talking too much, you know, out of field here. But that's kind of basically what I'm about. And there's many examples of things I could explain, and maybe there'll be some questions that come out that I can help elaborate that have kind of define who I've become in my baking career and impact that can be had when you go up the management ladder. And I think that's 10 minutes. Close enough.
Very speedy at 7. Well under the wire. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mel. I can see in the chat that Laura's actually beavering away answering a lot of the questions. Don't worry, you don't have to, Laura. That's fine. We'll be sort of throwing some of those to you later. You can carry on, obviously, but don't feel you have to, because we'll be throwing some of those to you during the sort of the open chat bit a bit later, which means it will be captured on the video for people who are watching this afterwards as well. So thank you again, Mel. Next up, we have Ryan Morgan, who is the owner and head baker at 16 Bricks in Cincinnati, in the USA, in Ohio, USA.
I guess I'm supposed to talk now.
Well, you could just
I was
sit there,
enjoying
sit there
listening.
and smile. But
You know, the listening part was good. I hope everybody's doing good. It's an incredible honor to be here. Such amazing folks. Mel recommended me for this position here in chatting today, and it was funny. Her and I met at a bakery class convention. I don't really remember what it was at the moment. Bread lab thing, sourcing flour and things along that line. And we had conversation about our bakeries and employees and things like that. And I guess I should start and say hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Morgan, Cincinnati, Ohio. I own and operate 16 Bricks Bakery. It was my mother's. I'm a mechanic by trade, from motorcycles to heavy machinery to blood typing equipment. I don't really have a background in food whatsoever. My dad had MS and I took over their bakery because I hated vacation and money was the reason. I've had, I took over this small bakery and I didn't really know how to make bread. And, much like Mel, I went there, I did what I knew. I just fixed all the equipment. It was like, fix this, clean that. And then I had some help and I was taught how to make bread by somebody and some poor souls. I worked very hard at it. I did tryouts for the Coupe du Monde. I've done a lot of things in bread since then. And much like Mel was talking about, I've also fallen in love with whole milled flour and better grains, trying to stay away from white flour. And with that is a responsibility to what people eat. And I think that's a big thing for bakery and bakers is what are we going to share with our internals? And then how do we care for the people that are in our facilities? I love the employee ambassador. That's an amazing statement. And, paying people a livable wage is it's funny. I've had a lot of really bad jobs and I've worked for some people in some dangerous situations in my life. And I knew as I became an owner that I didn't want anybody to have to deal with that. I currently have 33 employees and pre-coronavirus COVID, we had 52. It's funny to hear that Mel's experience with women were not as equal as men. I have a woman who runs the oven at my facility, and if she ever leaves, I don't know what I'm going to do. We have we're actually primarily women at my facility. Except for we just have a new operations manager who I don't know what I did before him. But one of the things that happened in my small bakery, and we're strictly wholesale, is I developed some breathing problems with just the nonstop flour and breathing of flour. So when I moved and built a bakery, the first thing I did was had negative air pressure. So all the air pressure and all the flour kind of starts to disperse towards the ground rather than up in your face as you're throwing, because we do a lot of hand work in my shop. The second thing that we did was we purchased removable bowl mixer to where it was dumped and you're not, hand in the Hobart, reaching down to the bottom to pull dough out and just beating yourself up that way. Nobody really talks about, in wholesale baking, how brutal it is on your physical body, your hands, your elbows, your shoulders. For me, it's my traps holding this big water head of mine up all the time. It's always, it's a big problem I have. But, our dividing system, we started with a small 20-part divider to where it wasn't just a constant thing. We have a Rion line. It's not for a small shop. You know, it's for cranking out a lot of the same product again and again and again. And it's very nice for everything, you know, for everyone. It weighs things within a gram or two, which is fine for Department of Weight and Measure, which is something we have here in the United States. You know, I guess I never talked about this part, is the first piece of automation we purchased was our loading system. I have a Miele oven with an Athlete loader. On this loader, you know, you can spend a little bit more money and it has a vacuum. So, you know, I don't know if anyone's ever swept soot, cornmeal, and salt in their face, or burnt caraway, or whatever kind of seed you have on your product at that time. It sucks, you know, and salt is just so hot when it hits you in the face, or neck. This area is really good. But that was the first part of automation that we purchased. It's funny now, you know, we put things on a loading conveyor and score, and everything is still by hand. I think that there's an ability to take dough out of a mixer mechanically, divide things mechanically, and do the heavy lifting and heavy things mechanically. And it's a lot like, you know, paying your people a livable wage, is to invest in that, in their health and in their environment, to just to keep them healthier and happier at work. We also pay pretty well. That was one of the things. It was a price increase, and we just made it happen, you know. And the growth of the employee is another super important thing, that if you don't invest in, everyone's just going to leave. I think that is where we are right now, is this can be like a pass-through position. Like, you can come in and work at 16 Bricks and then get another job in 3 or 4 months. And, you know, we can have a facility like that. But I have a lot of people that have been with me from the beginning. They've stuck around. They've had a good time. We've grown a lot. I have a guy whose job was to put the bread in the bag, you know, and now he is he runs the line. And by line, I mean, we mix, and then I have a machine that takes the dough out of the bowl, as in save your elbows, shoulders, and back. And then we divide everything, shape it all by hand on a table, proof, bake, you know, pack. It almost sounds like a bakery. But these are some of the things, you know, people have stayed there the entire time. You know, Evan started doing that. Now he's this. He was actually at the conference when I met Mel for the first time. You know, our people are just as important. We had a company meeting, and it's really neat in bakery, because the people to the right and left of you, if all of you stand in a circle, they're just as important. And it's just like what was echoed earlier by Lauren. It was everybody's just as important. How can we all chip in and make things nicer and easier? And if it costs me a little more money to keep people that I don't have to train, well, isn't that saving me money in the end? You know, and when we come in and, you know, we have like the lighting is kind of grocery store, not so much like White Castle in the middle of the night. I think that just the vibe, the culture, and how to be kind to one another. My employees know our financial status. They know our hopes and dreams for tomorrow. From everybody to our sanitation people, our quality control drivers, they all know everything. We constantly communicate and constantly try and improve each other. I don't really know what else to say. So
that's really good. It's such a shame that it's the benefits, obviously, of this event. We're able to speak to you from the other side of the ocean and to people around the world. The sad thing is we can't do the chatting stuff and also getting drunk stuff, which is the whole, you know, live events allow you to do. because it'd be great if people, you know, after the main talks could come and grab you and say, hey, tell me about this. We can't do that actually, but we can have a virtual go at it in a few minutes. But thank you for now, Ryan. So the last of our 4 speakers today is Cindy. She has helped pull this together. She's reached out to a lot of people that, I mean, I've been running this campaign for 10 years now, and so many people we have now met thanks to Cindy, who I didn't know about them and they didn't know about us. So it's fantastic to be able to make these new connections. Someone went to interview Cindy in the bakery, and I just thought this sounded interesting. We made the connection, and Cindy had just got this passion for doing things in ways that worked for the staff. It wasn't just all about bottom line. You know, it was partly on the way to getting to that bottom line, but it was also the looking after your staff. And she was saying, well, you know, how do we talk to more people? And said, right, well, let's do this. So here we are. Anyway, Cindy is a baker. She was originally a chef. She's a baker, and she's currently in London. Anyway, I'll let Cindy tell you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so this is kind of like last night just suddenly hit me. Oh God, it's gonna be all these people. Oh God, a bit of panic, but I mean, I think has been a very exciting, probably 6 months or something like that, since I actually left the last bakery where I was working before. I am back in London, and I will be doing a few things, which I will just tell you in a minute, like after I finish for what we are here. I bet a lot of you guys, I mean, I have get these questions like, I don't know how many times, like, oh, so how the hell did you do it? You know, like, how do you eliminate the night shifts? And to be honest, it was really hard. It wasn't like just one step thing and just like clicking my fingers and happening. Before that, I had to go through loads of things, and the elimination of the night shifts were just the cherry in the top of the cake. I brought some stuff. Someone told me, if you're gonna talk for 10 minutes, just like prepare 5 because you're probably gonna go over. And I was like, now thinking about it, Mel and Ryan and Laura, you guys were sure, and I think they were just specifically about me. They probably were just telling me like I chat too much. So I did some kind of like I kind of like tried to organize the best way I can explain how did I do it. So to be honest, it was really hard. It was a lot of things. In the beginning, before eliminating the night shifts, I had to guarantee the bread was going to be delivered at time and a high quality, which is, you know, the main concern. So we make loads multiple times, you know, we have to adjust to, you know, to get there. So some days we were baking too early, and some days we were baking too late, etc. So the first thing I would say to all of you guys, in order to eliminate the night shift, which is, you know, like the why we're here, why I'm talking about, well, why I'm talking is because, is understanding your resources, right? So what I mean with resources is equipment, tables, you know, a mixer, your space, your fridge, you know, the capacity of your fridge, etc. When you understand how your resources work, you start seeing, you know, like, well, what I need to put a bit more effort, what would make my life a bit easier. As we all know, and we have been talking for a while, you know, like and I actually wrote in the blog that Chris just published on Friday, you know, we have this massive problem with, you know, rotation, and we keep thinking, oh, it's the bakery, you know, like we start seeing the stock problem with the bakery. And I realized it wasn't the bakery, it's the system. We have been doing stuff in an old-fashioned way, and when we now can do things in a much better way, you know, exploiting all the resources than, you know, the people you have around. So you understand your resources in the bakery, how many staff you have, etc. And the target was just basically give my staff a normal life like I never have had, because I worked for so many hours. I got just like, that was my life. But I thought this is completely unsustainable. Before I hit 30, I'm just gonna burn out and probably just escape to the Caribbean and live, in Ireland. So, but I love what I do. So I decided to change the stuff. So after you understand that, and loads of you guys will think, well, so how do you do it? Because bread is very organic, right? But as you know, like the majority of you here most likely are bakers, yeah, bread could be very unpredictable. But when you know your recipe and you know your bakery, you know your temperatures, and you know your country, the weather you're dealing with, you will be able to, like, you know how long usually takes your levain to like ferment properly to just be added to the autolyse. So that means you will know when to start the autolyse. So that way you will adjust your batches between batches. You will adjust how much quantity you can make in an hour, how much you can bake in an hour. So having all this information, eventually you get to understand where is the gaps, where we are not working efficiently, what we can improve. Is it training? Is it equipment? Is it space? Like where we're failing. So there is where I put, I start tweaking the details of like what is needed to improve all these. So when I went to all that, the other thing was, London living wage. The people who live in London knows this is ridiculously expensive, live in London or any city. And usually, bakers don't get paid very well. We basically do this because we love it. Otherwise, you just don't do it. And I thought, well, it's about the quality of what we're doing. So it doesn't matter how much, like how long I'm taking working in a place. Is about the quality of like what you're doing. So I decided to, this was a process to pay everyone by salaries. So the salaries, people will be, this is the amount of bread you're supposed to make, day. This is all the tools. This is my guidance, and it's possible because we have been doing it. So this is the way you're gonna do it, and you can do it in 6 hours, or you can do it in 12 hours. But obviously, ideally, is you want to get out of the bakery because you want to go and have a pint. You want to go and walk the dog, or just meet some friends or whatever, or have a sleep. So I eventually changed all these when I have every single step or bits in the bakery. I understood how these things were working. I motivate the staff like paying by salary, so they didn't have to be like wandering around because they need another 10 quid in order to pay the rent that month. So I thought, okay, so this is all the tools. Actually, I'm going to show you a couple of things I did as an examples. So understanding the how to make the bread and my resources, I thought, okay, what is next? Boom, the pandemic hits. And I thought we were mainly wholesales. And as many of you guys know, in matters of days, we lost 80% of our customers like this, because the majority of those customers were restaurants. And I thought, okay, so we need to basically become retail. How we're going to do, so we have to change the business model, but that gave me an opportunity to, the numbers going down, introduce, eliminate the night shift and just bake what I was going to be selling in that day. So I mean, to be honest, guys, I can be talking here for hours, and I'm actually watching myself because I'm watching Chris and kind of like, it's a lot of, basically what I want to say is a massive process, and it's very tailed, depend of your bakery. Thank you, Chris. it depends of your bakery and how you're going to exploit those resources. So I wish I could have just like, you know, a formula and just like give it to all, because I feel like if we change and we make this more sustainable and we make bread more sustainable, and good bread and real bread, we're going to be able to just multiply the business. There's so many people, and we have seen during, you know, like the pandemic, how sourdough just went to, you know, crazy. Everyone wants sourdough. Everyone loves sourdough now. And I feel like if we make it more sustainable for our staff, for people who love what they're doing, etc., I feel like we will be able to, you know, spread out real bread everywhere and eliminate that things they're making in supermarkets, and, you know, like those things they sell, which just chemicals, etc. Which, you know, I think that was basically my other drive. So I make schedules, I make guidance, because as I said, it's a very detailed a strategy, but this is kind of like an example of like when I eliminate the night shifts, how sort of it were looking like, what times we were starting events, when we were mixing the first batch, when we were mixing the second one, when to give the first fold and the second fold. And this is just a guidance, but we have a prover, we have a space, and I understood my space and the team in order to actually get to that point. Please, if you have any questions, I'm just going to call it now, because I actually have I have more, but if you have any questions, just like send me an email. Let's go and have a coffee. Let's go and have a Zoom chat, whatever you guys, I will be very happy to to help. This is the whole point of this event, is start making stuff more sustainable for people, because it's time to start thinking about us as a bakers, instead of like, you know, it's not just about money. Yeah, you have to make money to make stuff sustainable, but also we have to remember we are not machines. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cindy. That's brilliant. Right. Okay. So that's the end of the talk. So I was going to do all the plugs at the end, but people drift off at the end. So I'm going to do all the plugs now. So first one is, if you don't know, it's Real Bread Week coming up later this month. It starts on the 20th, runs through to the 28th of February. And Real Bread Week is our annual international celebration of additive-free loaves and people who make them. So it's all about getting people to go to local independent bakeries, or in the current climate in a lot of places have those bakeries delivered to them, or to bake your own real bread at home. So there's a load of information on our website. For the bakery owners amongst you, it's a hook that we create. We do a load of media work, especially in the UK. You use it in your marketing, basically, as long as it's in line with the stuff that says on our website, you know, it's additive free. Get involved. The other thing is, lots of you are Real Bread campaign supporters. As mentioned right at the beginning, we're run by a charity. We get no funding. We haven't had any funding for about 7 years now, 8 years. We don't take any sponsorship. So please join us. Starts from about 20 quid a year, and that helps us to carry on doing things like this, Real Bread Week and everything else we do. Please do join us. And you're very welcome, whether you join us or not, to stick your loaves on the Real Bread map on our website. I think those were the main things that I had to get through. Let's consult my notes. Oh, and the other thing is, yes, at the end we'll be posting a link to a survey just about to get some feedback about this. Do you want another one? And if so, what should we talk about? What went well today? What didn't work so well? What would be useful for you, frankly? So I'm now going to open up to questions. So I will try and have a view and see if you want to wave your hands actually, or if you want to use the little gizmo down the bottom of the reactions. I think you can wave with that. And I'll try and take as many as I can. I don't promise that I'm going to see you all, and I'll unmute you. And you can also post in the forum, and Abby, I think, will be throwing some of those in. Right, over to you lot. I'm looking, I don't see any hands. So let's take some, I'm sorry if you are waving your hands, I can't see you. I can't see any hands. So let's have a look from the tell you what, where's Anna Herbert? Here she is. Hey Anna, over at Hobbs House, you've got a question there.
Hang on, I'm asking. Hi, sorry. Thank you for picking me. Thank you, that was super interesting. I suppose I was just asking around communication because it was great to hear of the great things you do. I think what we struggle with is, as transparent as we want to be, is about how we get it to everybody in our teams at a level that they're able to understand, and also how we reach people when we all work different shifts. We do still do a night shift, I'm afraid. So I suppose it's just about how we get great messaging out, as Ryan talked about, and total transparency across to all the team. If anybody had any tips.
Oh,
I can talk a little bit about from Grand Central, and I know Ryan is open book. So we get all the financials get submitted to the management team, and so I go through them with my managers, and then we call them B2A huddles. So we go over the budget to actuals all together, and everything's in there, every single item that Grand Central spends. And then we share that in huddles throughout the week. So that's one of the main ways we get that information to the employees, so they can see exactly like what our net operating income is, what we pay for labor, wages, overhead, everything is just available. And since we've been doing that, it allows for more engagement. And when we're making decisions as a company, we get a little more buy-in from the employees, or they understand more. And it's been a journey. It's taken a while, but that's how we've been effective at getting all the financial information in a way that is kind of accessible to the employees. And then they're able to ask questions either, to their managers or directly to me, or they can send emails to HR. So that's worked pretty well for us. And then we'll post stuff in the break room that has our goals. I mean, last year was kind of the goal was to survive. So we weren't really putting our big goals for like 22, 24. But we would in the past kind of put our quarterly goals up and what our long-term mission was, whether it was facilities, benefits, doing more in our communities through, giving. So that worked pretty well for us.
Right, thank you. Do any of the other panelists want to jump in on that one? No? Okay. I can see there's a question from Kim Bell at Small Food Nottingham in England. Are you around? I can't see anybody. There's so many, it's fantastic, so many people I can't see you all. Are you around, Kim? Do you want to throw your question in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So my question was, because we've recently had a baker, this is the first time this has happened to me running a bakery, but had a baker go on maternity leave. And my question is, have any of the panelists got any advice or had any experiences that might help me? Because talking to bakers around the world, or bakery owners around the world, it seems like it's quite uncommon for female bakers to return to a mixing and oven role once they return to work after having a baby, which seems like a shame. And I wonder if there's any advice, or if any of you have had any sort of successes to try to help female bakers who are also mothers to return to their role as baker.
Hi, Kim. I had a situation, but wasn't specifically to me. It was actually in pastry. And I fairly, the bakery I was working before is really big. Basically, one of the things we did is just try to give her another job in the meantime, because she was carrying the massive belly. And also, it was a massive, effort for her to carry on, but also she needed to come to work too. So one of the things we did is basically just get another or somebody inside of the bakery. I think one of the things it could maybe work is like someone is at the bakery, you train them as a baker to do the job she's supposed to be doing, and you just move her maybe as a front of house or doing like more gentle work. And with the baby, when the baby was already delivered, to be honest, she left because she was vulnerable in that point in the pandemic. That was just last year. So we, you know, like we didn't carry on because we just furloughed her. Obviously, we were gonna take the risk to she can get something or etc. So maybe perhaps this can work. Like if you just shift her to another job you have in your lovely bakery. You know, doing some front of house or maybe packing or something else, or something that be more flexible in the meantime. If she's willing to come back to work, but maybe that could be an option for her.
I had somebody that she wasn't actually a baker. She actually did bought fruit and veg, but it was still a job where you had to a lot of heavy lifting, moving constantly on your feet all day, all those things that are an issue. We tried to put things in place around the lifting and the moving, and kind of we tried to communicate a lot with other staff members, because I don't know whether you found this, just making people aware of the situation and being like, even when it's not necessarily so obvious, but then it's only obviously going to become more obvious and more difficult for this person to be able to be on her feet, move things around. And so just to making other people aware, and maybe like we put set breaks in place, and we got other people to help with certain jobs so that she could switch around within her shift, which helped really well for us, because I think there was a little bit of tension with her personal kind of guilt around some things, not necessary at all, but with her job and not being able to do it but wanting to do it. So we tried to put stuff like that in place. And also when she did come back after maternity, just making provisions around like pumping and things like that are like the whole team, people in the team might not necessarily like know or, you know, want to know or whatever, but you know, there's certain aspects of her day that had to be completely changed around to allow for things like that. So we just tried to communicate with people as much as possible around that. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, and we're a little bit of a bigger shop, which allows for a little more flexibility, because you've got like, you know, maybe 12 bakers on a, well, not now, but eight bakers on a shift. And so when we've had folks go on leave, like, so as they're getting ready to go have their baby, we just kind of rotate them more, take them out of the mixed room, have them do like bench or oven work. We have automatic loading system, so it's a little less physical labor than manual loaders. And then when they return to work, we haven't had anybody not want to do those tasks so far, but we always, when they're going into re-entry, we just will start them like for a month on the bench, so they can get their muscle memory back and kind of ease back in to the physicality of the work. And then we'll schedule them with 2 people in the mixed room so that they can, you know, get back to it, but do things like scaling out ingredients, maybe, you know, setting up the batches. Maybe they don't cut out all the dough. They share that responsibility with somebody else, so they can kind of, if they want to go back to full work, we kind of take this 3-month approach so they can get their muscle memory back. And then, you know, we do have some folks who are older, that have, you know, they've been bakers forever, and we just try and keep them integrated and just have them do those tasks less than maybe, you know, one of our young bucks. And then we talk about it. And again, I think the community approach of having bakers help out and be aware. So if they're lifting a tub, they'll know that person needs help. And that seems to have worked and made it be easy without any stigma or awkwardness for when folks are coming back off of leave, whether it's for a baby or for other injuries.
Great stuff. Thank you. I'll be throwing in some questions from the chat in a minute. Just wondering if there are any sort of live questions anyone wants to ask. And just bearing in mind, this is an event that's sort of talking about ways of doing things that benefit the bakers. I've seen a couple of questions that are a bit more general. If we can keep them sort of on this topic of, you know, how do you do things that are good for your staff, good for your team, which ultimately is good for the bakery. But sort of the stuff about setting up a bakery, that's less for this chat. But we've got a feedback, as I said, at the end of this, and if you want to throw in ideas for future chats, please go for it. So does anybody want to jump in with a question for any of our panelists?
Hi.
Gina.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what are you guys doing to keep employees feeling safe and motivated and engaged when it's so tough and scary, you know, right now with the pandemic? Any strategies that you guys are doing?
I don't know. Hi, I'm Ryan. We've been doing a lot of things to try and keep people's mental states up a little bit more. Seems like everybody has like that dark cloud around them all the time. We're all kind of lonely and bummed out. One thing, actually just yesterday, I have a really good friend. It was funny, he was my mentor most of my baking career. Now he's like one of my best friends. My friend Mike Zakowski sent me some bread. You know, he just overnighted some bread. We got it. And we all stood around and cut bread yesterday and ate his bread, which is weird for a bakery. You know, we're like all sitting around eating somebody else's bread, talking about how great it was and kind of our drive and new flavor and what we're going to do next. We've done little things like that to kind of inspire to be better with our work. Ways to stay healthy and happy. We have team meetings like literally like 2 a week, and we all kind of check in with one another. We have a very clean procedure. You know, everybody's temping themselves. We're all in uniform now, washing up, staying, you know, and communicating. And we do a lot more team type work. We create a bread once a week. It's been quite a few failures with that. But that's been, you know, we all kind of just pitch in to keep each other clean and each other safe as best we can. There's not really much we can do. But there's only been 2 people that have had the virus out of the 33 that I have in-house. But honestly, just giving someone just a little bit more respect and a little bit more sensitivity than normal right now is I mean, because even everybody on the panel is a little mental right now. You know what I mean? We're all just a little bit fucked up. I mean, messed up. So I think that whole golden rule thing is all we're doing. And I was very coronavirus friendly before. I had never touched handrails, and I wash my hands when I get home. You know, I've always kind of been creepy about that stuff, but that's all. Thank you.
I think basically what I would say about that, how to keep the environment positive, even when the whole situation is looking a bit grim, especially last year in the beginning, is basically treating your team as a family. We sometimes fight, we sometimes, hate each other, but we sometimes love each other, and we share things with each other. I mean, we spend a lot of time together. So I think one of the things the way no one taught me how to be a manager. I just, I have made loads of mistakes. But one of the things I learned doing, being a manager was, before being a manager is like, what do I need? What did I need it when, I have a manager? When I need something in my job, just ask yourself, I would say, what do you need? What would make you feel better? Is there a good morning in the mornings and a handshake? Maybe no handshake, maybe elbow now for now, but like maybe if your boss arrived in the bakery, or you don't have to be a boss, just a baker, just arrive with a smile, or with like a story, or like bake a cake that day and share it with your staff. That kind of things would have like made my day if I would have it from my managers. So every time when I had something like, what, this is going wrong, what I would have liked from my manager, I would have received, or from any other colleague. So maybe it's a good morning, or a joke. I'm terrible at jokes, but yeah, a joke. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Hey, Gina. So Gina and I work together. Well, she's in Portland, but I know that when you're in the management area, it's hard, and a lot of us have started to work a little bit more remotely, just because we're trying to minimize body counts at the facility, just to keep it safe. And it's really hard when you're not on site every day to have the impact. And so one thing I've been trying to do more when I go on site and I do my QC walkthrough is to be more proactive about positive feedback in the moment. So if there's bakers pulling out beautiful bread, like making a point to go up and recognize that and be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is textbook, and just trying to be a little more deliberate and intentional when I'm there, so it has more impact. Because even before, I'd be in my office, which is on the production floor, but I would do that, but maybe not as much. And now, so I make that my focus. And I think that keeping that connection with your team and then your other coworkers who are on site helps, because it is really hard. And we are definitely in a little bit of a dip right now where you can, the extra stress, everyone's waiting for a vaccine. There's more tangible burden on people. And I think any little bit of light you can shed and positive feedback, because people are really proud about the work they do. I think, you can see people really light up. So I've been trying to do a lot more of that whenever I go on site, to be more intentional about engaging with the bakers and positive feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I also concur with everything that everyone said. And for us, because we're in smaller teams, there's less people, physically less people in the bakery, it's actually helped us to kind of bond a bit more as well, because when you might not see people for like nearly a week now, so you only see, because we were in very strict teams in last lockdown, but I've actually lost staff, so it's kind of worked out that we're not in such strict teams anymore. But it's actually really nice to just to have that, seeing the same people working the same shifts as well, because our times have actually changed a little bit, and so people might come in at different times, so you just get more of a connection. And a little bit about like what Ryan was saying, we're doing a lot more product development and working on things for specific events and specific like things in the calendar that we wouldn't usually have ever focused on, just because we'd be focusing on working. So it's really nice to have time to do that, and lets people have the creative outlet and feel more engaged in things with the business as well. So there are some positives.
Thank you. Right. So let me just have a look at some of these questions that have been posted in the chat. No, my computer's frozen. Right, go back to the live ones. Who else has got a question? Oh, I can see hands now. Morgan Williams.
Hi everyone. First I want to say thank you for starting this conversation. I think it's really important. As you can see, I'm a baker. I'm not a bakery owner. I'm not a manager at this point. I have managed bakeries in the past, but I'm really glad that this conversation is happening. So living wage is a really important thing. Sort of good working conditions and sort of making the night shift maybe less of a focus of bakeries is great. I'm sort of interested to hear what people's ideas are for the next step to make baking a more sustainable career beyond those things. So yeah, for the panelists, that's my question.
What do you like after being a baker, or?
No, I mean, beyond just a wage that is livable on and conditions that aren't sort of detrimental to your mental or physical health, those which are obviously like quite substantial sort of changes in a lot of bakeries. Those are quite radical. I'm thinking sort of for people who've made those changes, what are they thinking next to make their employees' lives better? And yeah, sort of make baking a better career, because that's, you know, what we're going for. So that's what I'm really interested in.
Well, sorry, you go, Laura.
No. For me, I guess there's a couple of things I guess are in the pipeline around more focused on what I was talking about, but around the kind of benefits, sick pay, holiday pay, because at the moment we're statutory on all those things, and that's a little goal of mine to make sure that, well, to put into place different things around that, so to give people set sick days off, because sometimes, you know, somebody might be ill and I just, you know, they still get paid the same, and that's fine, but there's nothing actually like set down in stone at the moment. So I'd quite like to sort that out, but that, which I think is important and gives, and for all the same reasons as the wage, and just having things, if you have things in a contract, then obviously you all have something to go on. So that's a goal of mine.
Cool, that's great.
I know for me, with my staff, we talked about some of the equipment that I have on hand that helps with the physical aspect of it, and the removing the debris from the air to improve our breathing is a huge thing as well. With all that, it's where do you put your money with your employee? I think constant development is a big deal. Constant different classes are often, it's hard to say now because it kind of feels like I'm not telling the truth, because with coronavirus and everything being shut down so long, it's hard to talk like we just did this, feels like ancient history. But I think like where I met Mel at the Bread Lab, sending people to different classes and schools, taking our time to teach people other things, allowing time for any kind of night school, day school, whichever is preferred. Can we match? Can we help? Those are always, it's nice to be able to sit here and say that that's going to happen and we'll do that. But yeah, right now financially, we don't really have the ability, but we most certainly are trying.
Cool. That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say for us, we added some employee benefits this year for 2021. Like we added, we changed our accruals for vacation rate. So the longer you work with a company, the more vacation you accrue. We try to give kind of soft benefits because it is hard right now because of the financial situation to just increase wages. I mean, we did a big wage increase last year anyway. We did, I think it was close to 6% for hourly employees. So this year we did softer benefits. So we have, community time where somebody can go volunteer in their community and they get paid for that. And it's under a different category. We added a personal day for employees. So you get an extra day of vacation to do whatever you want. You don't bank them. Every year you just get 8 hours. It doesn't roll over. So we did things like that. I think for me, for the bakery is kind of like Ryan was saying, we're at this stage now where we're reduced production, which has actually kind of been a blessing for us to reflect on the madness of where we were before and how can we grow in a way that's a little I guess smarter, like instead of just saying yes to everybody, let's be a little more deliberate in R&D and new products to make sure that it fits with our staffing for safety. And then looking, we do have some automation, but we need to streamline the dough from the mix room to the bench. So looking at Rion, and I really hope I get to visit Ryan's bakery this year. Yay, vaccine. But things like that, where we can continue to improve the ergonomics for our bakers, so we can have our teams be able to work for longer and reduce a little bit of the physicality, but not take away the skill of the baker. And so those are things that we're going to be focusing on this year. And hopefully we will be able to do pay raises again in July for hourly employees. And hopefully some of my management team will be able to have some extra money in their pocket this year.
Thank you.
I think it's a mix of things, right? We want to create, in terms of sustainability, we constantly talk about this word, and especially in our world, organic, and how, like, make stuff more sustainable. But we always forget about the people, which is just our main thing, like if you forget about the staff, you just basically, it's not actually sustainable, right? But it's a mix of stuff, right? It's a mix of, people and your business model and the social economical situation in the country. And as Ryan said, and Mel and Laura, they have already ideas, specific ideas how to improve or bake a better career in the bakeries. And I think when we get all these bits, you eliminate night shifts, you pay better, you reduce time, you make you add good equipment to make people, the people in your bakery, people's life better, like less body destroyed, like when you add all these bits, it's not just one answer for every, like this is the secret of everything. I think it's a mix of all this stuff, and this is the point of this event, like, brainstorm and kind of like try to catch different ideas, and that way we can, like, oh, maybe, like, oh, I can do that better, and oh, this person is doing this other thing. And when you gather all these stuff, there's all these pieces in the massive puzzle, you probably, you will be able to create a sustainable bakery. And to me, the goal is basically make bread, real bread, sustainable, so much so, those things, in supermarkets, we just get rid of it because people is not going to be in need of it. You just go to your bakery around the corner. You don't have to drive 20 minutes or, like, walk for half an hour to get a loaf of bread. So I think that is the ultimate goal, like motivate more people to make good bread. And the way to do it is just making it sustainable, because it's so many of us who love this. Like, I mean, look at these, all of you guys are here because you love what you do, or you love making bread. Thank you, Morgan.
Right, I'll just take, I think there's a few more questions. I'll take a couple more, and then I'll start maybe throwing some of the questions, or I'll throw it open to everybody and just say, right, what have you done in your bakery that's worked? Because yes, even though we've got a panel of experts here, there's a lot more experts in the room here. I can see 5 pages of you. So take a question from Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm the head baker at Atticus in New Haven, Connecticut. I was just wondering how some of you handle like inter team issues, specifically like if one team member is gossiping about the others. Would that be like a formal HR approach with paperwork, or something more familial or less formal?
It's my favorite subject and something that we deal with all the time. And unfortunately, saying, hey, shut the fuck up doesn't work out. I mean, shut up doesn't work out real well,
Ryan, we talk about these, you remember, before we start?
Totally. I remember this.
I'm keeping a count.
I forgot briefly.
That's $2 for the jar so far. I'm keeping count.
Yeah. I'm getting a formal write-up after this, aren't I? Screwed me up. you know, when people aren't happy and they aren't in a positive environment, they're going to be like that. And I find most of the time people are embarrassed of some action that they created. And then they try and point the finger this way or that way to deflect what happened with them. And so we try to make it a safer environment to talk about these things. But man, some people are just super negative. And I just try to shine a lot of bright light in dark corners, you know, if that makes sense to anyone. If I can bring out like, it's so hard to put it in words. I apologize for even speaking. I think that when there is the negative people that try to bring the vibe down, I take that as a great insult. And I try to attack that right away, because as soon as you damper the mood in my group and in my facility, that's my job. That's where I come in to rectify that situation. And I just generally counsel the people and the people around them. We all get paid very well. We all get good insurance. We have vacation. It's a safe environment. There's really no need to be upset. And when you're upset about something, we just talk about it. Everybody kind of, but if you do it, you know, 3 times, I'm going to write you up, you know, and that is the one thing where if you're negative and bringing negativity, we try to get rid of you pretty quick. But my management team is all very positive. So we don't really breed that environment like sometimes we accidentally do. Do you understand my strategy with that? Kind of what I'm saying? Or am I crazy?
No, Brian, I think I have been there too. I think we probably all managers, because sometimes it specifically to me, in my case at least, it happens a lot with younger staff. Sometimes, you know, when you have a lot of people in the bakery too, you know, like Mel or Ryan. I don't know how many people you have in your bakery, Laura, sorry. But usually, sometimes, you know, some people come with negativity, like Araya said. In the beginning, I usually encourage the person, you know, which is receiving the bully, I suppose, to, you know, to move forward and say, you need to stop doing this, to, you know, speak up for themselves, give them a chance to, you know, like go there. If they don't, or these people, or this other person just carry on with gossipings and stuff, I try to I would come in and I would say, you know, have a chat, just a chat. And there's 2 warnings, and you just let them know this is a warning. And if the situation carries on, I mean, you're in America. I don't know how the laws work over there, but in England, everything is incredibly bureaucratic. Probably it's easier to get divorced than sack a staff. So it will be, I think, in your, I don't know how the laws work there, but you have to. I would go through a procedure and just try to find what is going on with this person. Just give him a chance, because sometimes, you know, people just is having, you know, a shit day or a week or a month, or something is going on at home, and they just bring into the bakery without even realizing. And I know for a fact, as a baker, as a manager, it's just a burden. It's like having kids, you know, fighting all day, and you just have enough stuff to deal with, like bringing flour to the bakery or producing the bread. So I think perhaps I would say the way I would approach it is just have a couple of conversations and just let them know this is warnings, and if it carry on, just take an action, if, you know, like as you can. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe just to build on that, because I think we all have the same philosophy where you're going to take the personal approach first. And of course, and I actually see on the chat, my boss, treating coworkers with respect and kindness in our job description so we can hold people accountable. So that's like your leadership team, making sure they're aware of, you know, what's appropriate things to talk about. And then for the person who is the negative person on the bench, is like talking to them directly, like off the bench, because generally when people start doing that, there's other stuff going on, and is to just be like, you know, what's going on with you? Like, you seem unhappy, maybe you can elaborate, you know, where it's important, you know, we keep this nice, safe environment for everybody, and dig in. And oftentimes you'll find that they have personal stuff that's impacting. So then you can keep it confidential and take it to HR if maybe they need to go on leave or something like that. And if it's just that that person that you can't connect with is having consistency with all your employees, so you can't be accused of, you know, discriminating or any of that thing. And the same thing, talking, coaching, documenting, and if necessary, you know, you're managing them out the door. But the personal approach to start is always the best way. And oftentimes oftentimes you can turn folks around, because it's generally something else going on that you actually have no control over, but you can help guide them through the process.
Yeah, I was going to say that about personal. I think it's actually about them. But one thing I was going to say is sometimes it's good to kind of talk to the other people if there are other people involved, not directly, not, you know, this person said this about that, but sometimes you can gain a bit of information around the situation, so that when you do then talk to that person, you've got a good idea about what other people think of it, if that's doable or appropriate.
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of that stuff. We have a really tight-knit team. One of the complications, though, is like a language and cultural barriers within the team. So I find, culturally speaking, a lot of people on my team don't really want to share, because they don't want to like make a big scene about things. Like when I've talked to the other people on the team about this particular issue. So it gets a little tricky to navigate that, I think.
Yeah, it sounds really tough. Yeah, maybe just try and talk to the person directly then.
Thank you, everyone, for that. Okay, so we've got about 35 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw things open. If there are people out there who've got tips they want to share, so are there things that you've done at the bakery that you found work really well for the business, and in particular work really well for the people in your business, and has helped them to enjoy, them to thrive, whether that's financially or in terms of their mental well-being as well. That's an important issue that we haven't really sort of touched on too much here, but you know, happy bakers make good bakers, I am told. So if anyone's got anything to share that there's work for your staff, but then obviously that has worked for your business, stick your hands up, and we'll rather than questions, have a few comments come in. If you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions thing. If you stick a thing, that'll plonk a yellow hand on your screen, which means I'm more likely to see it. Anybody out there? You're all shy. Fair enough. Okay. I will go back. Let me just double check. I've got 5 pages of you here. Okay. Nothing for now. Okay. So I'll go back to the questions then. So questions. There's a couple here for you, Cindy. One of them is, if the pandemic hadn't started, would you have been able to get rid of the night shift? And another one was, in a wholesale environment where you want to deliver bread and pastries at their freshest by 6 or 7 a.m. How do you do it?
Okay. Thank you for your question, guys. The first one, absolutely. I have been planning these for months. But it happens, you know, to be honest, I was about to don't do it because everything was just like absolutely mental. I was running, you know, like we were running like headless chickens in the bakery. Oh my God, we're just basically losing everyone. And how are we gonna, and all the bread was already in the way. So, you know, like bread takes 3 days to happen. And we were like, oh, so how are we gonna deliver all this stuff? And It was a lot of pressure, very long days, very little sleep, more than usual, and a lot of stress. But yes, I was planning for months how I was gonna shift it. And when I finally, actually, I went on holidays, and then when I came back a week later, 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit, and I was planning to just specifically just launch it that week. You know, like. I just moved it, I think it was just a week after the elimination of the night shifts. It was going to be a bit like different, but I just adjusted, and I thought, I mean, I gotta do it. I need to do it. I'm gonna do it. Like this is it. And I just jumped and see what was gonna happen. It wasn't too bad. So actually brought some kind of like good vibes in the group, because it was like, oh my god, this is brilliant, but now we have a lot of time. What are we gonna do? We don't have, we can sleep, but we're not used to it. Okay, and we can go to the pub because the entire country or the world is in lockdown. So what are we gonna do? So yes, I definitely would have already done it. I would have already pushed it in a different way, but I would have like get it out. What is the second question, Chris, again?
It was about delivering pastries. So yeah, if you want to get bread out the door at 6 a.m., how do you do that without having a night shift?
Yes. So one of the things we do, because exactly we, you know, like we were delivering in London. London is pretty big, so our delivery drivers, they were working during the night, like 2 a.m. is was the first people coming to pack to load the ovens, the bread in the vans. And usually in London at the time anyway, you know, it was a lot of traffic, so we have to see the logistics of delivering, and depend on the place where you are, you're gonna move the bakes. Usually, like if it's pastries, and obviously these also depend on the flour you use. Like if you use, for instance, you know, one type of flour and you know your bread is not very moist, you need to figure out a way to pack them, or you know, or keep them in the best way possible, right? Like the most fresh possible. So it's a lot of factors you have to think here. But in my particular case, the bread was baking the latest it was baguettes coming out at 11, because you know, as we all know, baguettes usually, you know, they're the first ones to get really hard and become like basic harmful. So that was the last thing we baked, and the deliveries were arriving before 6. 6 is a bit too late, at least here, so it was a bit around 5 from 4. And you just, you know, like if you bake the last bake is at 11, the bread would just stay out for 4 or 5 hours, and it's not out because we were packing some of the bread in a specific type of packaging to keep the consistency of the bread, you know, the quality of the bread. And the ones it wasn't, they were in the racks, and by the time they get there, it was, you know, 5 hours shelf life, you know, between you bake and you deliver. It was pretty good. So that was the way it was working. And in terms of pastries, we were trying to figure out how to do it, but I think is, again, you can, if the latest you bake, this is croissants for us. We have an oven of 11 racks, and every rack was holding, I think, is 15 croissants. So that much you could have like pack it, or how long it would take, 20 minutes, 25 minutes to bake them, take them out and pack them and leave them. So depend on what times you have to deliver these products. You can, for pastries, you can start just early instead of baking the night before, you know, like just, you know, before 12. For bread, you need a bit of time to rest the bread, because you can't pack bread just coming out of the oven. Obviously, you would just like squash them all. but pastries is just 20 minutes bake. So usually you just can bake it. The earliest shift we're starting at 4. So by the time you know, like if you have one oven of, you know, I don't know, I think it was like 15 by 11, you know, whatever that number is, you will have that much of croissant every 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So it's about timing, you know, like, and you're delivering. So how long takes your bread or your pastry to baked, how long it takes to packet them, and how long it takes to be delivered. So when you see that information, you start moving things around, like what I need to bake first and what times will be better to bake them. I hope that makes a bit sense. It's just, you know, like in my head, it's just like going all this here, all this going on here. And I'm like, I think I'm delivering the information, but if not, I mean, like I said, just email me. I will try my best.
Great stuff. Thank you. Yeah, on the point of emailing, data protection, obviously I can't give out the speakers' email addresses, but most of them have got websites, publicly published email addresses, so you can seek them out. And also if you email me, I can forward messages on. I can be a go-between, and you may or may not get a reply. I can't promise that, but I will pass messages on. One question in the chat. Yeah, so also in chat, if anyone wants to answer any of the questions in the chat, feel free to dive in there and answer each other's questions. Go for it. Also, someone's asked about union affiliation. Do any of the panelists, are they affiliated to trade unions, or do they have any unions operating within their bakeries?
So I've had experience with the union. So we're not currently a union shop, but last year we did have the bakers in actually it was end of 2019. The bakers in Portland petitioned to be recognized by a union. So all of last year we were in collective bargaining with the union, and we still don't have a ratified contract for that group of employees. And so that was really interesting educational process for me, but also to be responsible for a department en masse, but 2 different cities, one group that were choosing to have union representation. And so that was challenging on many ways, because during the bargaining process, if we weren't able to implement some of the benefits to that employee group, because everything has to go through the union. So that was, you know, like hard to be like, oh, we're giving everybody else this day of vacation, but you guys can't have it yet because there's no contract. And just making sure anything we were bargaining for would be things that at some point we would be able to replicate in Seattle. So if it was benefits, work conditions, you know, so that we wouldn't, the goal was to try and maintain parity, right? It did give us, it was really surprising that the Portland group chose this route. We'd had some management struggles for like a year, and I think that came about. We had some younger bakers who were very political, and I think that's part of why that came about. But it gave us a really great opportunity to reflect and see what gaps we'd had maybe that might have motivated this group of employees to go down the union road. Because like I said before, I work for a really great company where we have competitive wages, all those things. Not, of course, nobody's perfect. Anyway, so right now we're still in that bargaining process with that union group, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses, but definitely, yeah, a learning process. And I think unions have a place in this world, and they can be really great for companies that aren't good stewards of their employees, and really challenging having two cities to manage. And it'll be interesting once the contract gets voted in, which hopefully will be this year, because collective bargaining takes a really long time, to actually manage that, because it'll be a training, there'll be training for the managers down there, because everything will be under the union rules. So anything like HR, disciplinary, which is, again, intellectually, it's kind of exciting and it's interesting to me, but it is a lot of work.
Do any of the other panelists have any experience of unions operating in any of the bakeries they run or worked at?
No, I think.
tried very.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think people's a bit scared about unions. So in general, in hospitality. So yeah. Yeah, Ryan, please just share it.
I try really hard to not be the kind of employer that my people would want union. I understand the situation that Mel's been placed in with that, and a lot of the stuff that went on over in the West Coast with Baker employees and things like that. You know, I give you good hourly pay, we give you vacation, you have benefits. I do my best to stay out of that kind of situation. We're not a big enough company currently to be able to afford that. And I really don't know what I would do if they wanted to become union, other than call Mel and say, Mel, help me. I have absolutely no idea what to do. But I know that I do. And Mel, I know that, you know, and I'm sorry to keep relying on you, but it's I know we don't treat people that way, and it's very interesting to hear that you're going through that. And I'm sorry, it's strange times right now.
Yeah, strange times. Hard to not take it personal, you know, like it was, yeah, all the ownership group, and it was like, what do you mean you want to unionize? You know, like, and you know, I just think we're in a generation where there's a lot of folks who really want to fight for their rights, and I stand by that. I think there's also some misguided idea of what is a great and fair place to work. And I know there are a lot of bakeries, and like Ryan said, on the West Coast that got where there's several union pushes, and I actually don't know how all of them panned out, but it is, you know, unions, there's a place for unions, absolutely. And I think that you know, this is a broad crowd, I'll go out on a limb, but sticking it to the woman of a bootstrapped bakery who became successful and does a lot for the community and the employees. You know, like I say, our starting salary for a dishwasher is $18.50 an hour, which is really competitive for Portland and Seattle. And granted, people can always make more money, but it just seems like there's some misguided ideas about unions and companies. And again, you know, I'm always trying to see the positive. It has been an interesting journey for me. I've learned a lot about labor law, very familiar with the NLRB website. And, you know, it's another opportunity to learn, but I would also have liked to have not spent a lot of my time last year doing that during COVID, but it is, you know, it is what it is. And hopefully we're going to have a good resolution.
Throwing it out to other people out there, away from the panelists, has anyone else got any experience of running or working in a bakery in which there's been a union operating? I know there's in the UK, there's bakers and food, allied food workers union, I think they're called. But I can't think I've come across any of our supporters who've been involved in that. So just wondered if anyone here on this is involved in any union activity. Jump in if you are. I can't see you. No, that's interesting. As I said, there is, you know, quite a large union in the UK, but it seems to be outside the world that we, as the Real Bread campaign, work in. The bakers that sort of find us and we find typically don't seem to be unionised. I don't know if that goes back to the point of people are generally happy working in these bakeries, and they're generally run by people who don't screw their employees over. I really don't know. It does seem to be the larger bakeries that go into unionisation and speculation. Maybe that's just because as you grow larger, having that personal contact and those personal relationships becomes harder, and things kind of get lost along the way. But I know nothing, and if no one else has got stuff to chip in, let's move on from unions. Let's just have another look in the questions. We're down to about another 15 minutes, so. Someone has asked about training programs. What sort of training do you give to your employees? Is there a sort of a formal structured training program that you have, or is it a kind of a you learn as you go along and as you know, fairly ad hoc?
Well, I've been in a few places, and to be honest, I never saw in my own experience a training proper program. And it's this idea in bakeries and hospitality in general, like you basically have to work long and hard to get to the fun bits, and you know, peel loads of potatoes before you can fry them. So usually that is what happens. But in one of the things I think is a strength is like teach everyone to do everything. So depend on the person. We were doing it by sections, like mixing, baking, shaping and pre-shaping. So we're basically sections of like the process. And when the person kind of like nail what, you know, like if you feel comfortable and confidence in one of the section, we move to the next one. And the same until, you know, they were fully, you know, train, and after that you just give him one night, you know, like one baking, and leave him alone and see how they go, and if there's any questions. But everyone is going to make mistakes, and actually people learn better making mistakes. So I think probably in terms of training, I used to do it like that. I don't know, I'm not sure about you, Mel and Laura or Ryan, but we were basically dividing it in sections and just like make them feel comfortable and owning that section before, you know, we move to the next one.
Same with us, like we generally have somebody shadowing. So like they'll come in as an extra member of the team for like the first few shifts, just to get a general vibe, and then they'll shadow usually one person doing each section, because we found that was also really useful. You know, not completely set in stone, but we felt like, you know, certain people are better generally at training anyway, but yeah, would work. Get used to one thing. Like we pretty much always start on ovens. Ovens are last, what am I about? Mixing, with ovens being the last thing that people do, because I think ovens can just blow your mind if you don't know what's going on. So yeah, we generally do like mixing and table, and then pastry, and then work your way to kind of ovens, because that's a bit of everything put together, is the way you usually do it. And we have a staff handbook that's a little bit front of house oriented, but again, it's good for people to go through that and go through the safety manuals and things like that. And also we'll see if they want to do any other shifts in any other sections. So we think it's really good for people to get a view of the retail side of it, because it is completely different. And also it's really nice to serve customers that like love coming to the bakery and love buying bread, and you know, there's people that come in every day, and so it's, you know, it's easy not to notice that if you're just baking, even though our space is open. It's very easy for you not to notice it. So yeah, we do that usually. Yeah,
we have job descriptions that are pertinent, you know, kind of you progress up the job description. So we have a Baker 1, which would be our entry level kind of training position. And even if somebody had experience, we would start them there just to make sure, you know, their skill set was what they said it was. But we use that as a template to train, and it's a similar, you know, process of everybody, where we generally start people on the bench, especially if they don't have any experience in baking. because then they get a sense for the feel of dough and fermentation. Once they've got all their time there, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the person, we'll put them in the mix room, and we'd always partner them up with an experienced mixer or lead, a shift lead. And then from there, they would then go to the oven. I'll let oven last, and then we have some bun roll things that would learn that. And so the Baker One, we're actually working on a more consolidated training program where there'll be weekly check-ins and you would give feedback. So it's a little more structured. Once you've learned all those aspects of baking and you're competent, then you would be moved to level 2 baker. And then there's a little more depth of knowledge that happens there, where you might be involved in some of the counting, running the bench, being the person who's responsible for the proofing. You might be designated a lead to run a particular piece of equipment. So that second wave of training just goes a little bit more in depth to the process. And then we have, of course, shift leads. So once, we need a position, we would promote from within for that. And then they would be like next under the shift manager, and they would, then have email access and go to more meetings and be able to report safety and equipment issues through some of our software avenues we have, and be a little more part of the management team. So it's kind of progressive, and then the job descriptions, and there's pay that is pertinent to those different levels. And then we do a lot of promoting from within. So all my shift managers, with the exception of Juan, have worked for the bakery for a long time and worked their way up. And, we're really, I think probably that's part of me, because I did that, is like really trying to train everyone to be the best person. And those that have an interest in management, there's a path for them to move up.
Excellent. Thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to have another go at opening the floor up to see if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask live, or any points you'd like to make. Are there any things that you'd like to share about running a bakery or working in a bakery? Things that let's keep it positive, things that you found that really work for bakery staff and the business. Dive in. Okay, maybe Michael Engler, I see you posted a question. Do you want to actually ask it yourself rather than me ask it for you, which I've been doing all along? Michael, do you want to ask your question about?
Yeah, sure. I was wondering what people's thoughts are on 4-day working weeks. How you balance it without making shifts too long, but still giving employees on hourly pay kind of the hours they need. And also kind of staffing the bakery sufficiently with the same amount of staff, and wondering if anybody had made it work successfully. Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the things. One of the things I did is we were producing almost 5 tons of bread. I would say it was like hitting 4.5 a week. I had 6 guys in then, and they were working 6.5 hours max. And basically it was just, was a combination of things. If you understand how, what would be, one of my problems was, the owners of the bakery were asking me to produce more because, people usually in hospitality thinks, more hours, more productivity, but it's not. So I made the strategy I developed was around equipment and resources, space. So from there, I just figured out a better way, or a way to make the process smoother. So one of the things happen a lot in bakeries is that it's a lot of waiting between batches, or and it's a lot disorganization in general, because the bread just can just slap you in the face. You know, one day is going faster and another day is going slower, and you're like, ugh. So when you understand, you know, the resources, you sort of try to control your levains and your bread and your batches. And in our case, you know, every 45 minutes, the bread was going to be great. I usually, the first thing I did is wake up and check the weather that day. So sometimes when you start mixing, I don't know, at 7, let's say, you start your first mixing, at 9, the temperatures is completely different. So you probably will have to adjust, you know, the temperature of the water by, you know, by 9. So you start a bit like hotter, but you end a bit warmer. So that way, when you find that balance of what to do, you know, like you just reduce the timing, because it's no waste of time. It's just, you know, like, you know exactly what to do. The bread is answering you, you know, of like the questions you're making and how you're pushing them. And actually, because our days were so short, and we were producing our physical max capacity, I was going to reduce the time and just have like 4 days, you know, 4 days, probably you can produce 4 days, you get 1 person out, and you just reduce the time in 3 days or 4 days, and you just work a bit longer hours that day, maybe 8 or 9. I still thinking I think it's very important to give the opportunity to your staff to have a life. The fact you love what you do, that doesn't mean it's nothing else in life. You know, I'm a baker, but I also like cycling, and I also like hiking, and I like swimming. And if I have, you know, like I want to have a family, or if you have a kid, and, you know, working 12, 14, 15 hours a day, or even if you work, you know, 15 hours every 4 days in a row, that doesn't give you the opportunity to, you know, be with your kids or go out with your mates, or, you know, do all the things you like, because maybe you probably are going to be too exhausted to do anything else. Because, you know, as you probably know, you know, baking is a very physical and psychological and emotional thing. You know, it's just like, it drains you, it can drain you. So you get home and you just want to watch Netflix. I think it's possible to reduce the time. I did it like basically just exploiting all the resources, and it's still paying just, that is the reason I changed to salary, because they were working such a little hours, they weren't making enough money to pay rent or food or anything. So that motivates them to actually even like make the job, you know, get the job done, because it's not point to be wandering around when you can just, or have another job like some people in Ryan's bakery do, or have a hobby, or go and have kids, or whatever you want to do with the spare time, your spare time. Sorry, I maybe go away and I'll be longer.
We, most of the people that work for me work 3 or 4 shifts. I actually only have a couple of people that work full-time, 5 hours. It's always been a goal for us. We do 8-hour shifts in the bakery. Like, I'm not saying every now and again, you know, Christmas, whatever, you might have some long shifts, but our shifts run from like kind of 4:30 in the morning until midday, a bit earlier on a weekend, but we're kind of, that's our shift, but we're retail, so a bit different. And so, yeah, I totally get what Cindy's saying, like to kind of work backwards almost, and see when you want to get things out, or what you need to produce, and then work backwards from there. And also what you can pay people, I guess. Yeah, if everyone wants the wage that's for 5 days, then can you afford to do that, where you work more hours in less days, if that works for the schedule of the bakery? For me, we have 8.5-hour shifts, and then all my bakers are paid salary, so that type of thing's not an issue. Some days you might get out a bit early, some days you might get out a bit late, but yeah, I think it's definitely possible for people to do it, basically. Definitely.
Thank you. I'm very aware that not everybody likes jumping on the soapbox as much as I do, and you're a bit shy to talk in front of all these people. So there are actually some people have been making some comments actually in the chat. If you haven't seen those, do have a look. It's great that you're contributing through there, so do have a look at those. But yeah, if anyone else is quite happy to stick their head above the parapet like I am, yeah, anyone got any sort of thoughts they want to add just before we wrap up? We've got a couple more minutes left, so any more questions or any more fantastic comments, fantastic ideas?
I wanna take this opportunity to invite you all to this new project I'm like trying to launch about women. The name is Women Bakers Project. It's about celebrating women's in bakeries. Somehow we just, you know, I realized doing these events is so many women's doing amazing things, like very, you know, sustainable, like Mel, for instance. And I know so other many, like Dawn in Toronto. Hi Dawn, if you're still there, or, you know, Kimberly, you know, Kim has been doing amazing work in the north of England. And, you know, I realize it's a shame we haven't had the opportunity to basically, you know, find to celebrate them. So I will be working on this. That's the next bit. If you are interested, you don't have to be a woman for this, but is specifically for women. If you want to be part of it, just hit me with an email or something, and I will add you to the club.
Fantastic, thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I've seen some comments there. Yes, more women in bakeries. Turns out, yeah, there are loads of women in bakeries. And Cindy said to me, well, in her article, it's like it's been all underwater. How do people just not notice and realise there are so many women in baking? I think, and women who own bakeries and are head bakers as well. So, yeah, making some noise. That's brilliant. Sustain, we're working harder on our questions of diversity in all senses. Equality and inclusion, and certainly this is one element of that. And yeah, I mean, another element is about the whole issue of racism in food, and in our case in baking. And that's something that I'd really like to involve all of you in, and anyone else you know, and everyone who isn't in this room, to get involved in. Frankly, don't know where to start, and so people who've taken first steps in that direction be brilliant. You know, where are the problems in bakery? Kind of see a lot of white faces, particularly in ownership, and coloured faces further down the pecking order. You know, these are a conversation that probably should be had, and it'd be great to have that with you. There's a survey in the chat there, just to say, what should we be talking about next time? Well, do you want to have a conversation again? Do you want to talk to us ever again? And if so, what do you want to talk about? And do you want to do the talking? You know, we've got a soapbox here. I'm quite happy for you to jump on it. I think now time to start wrapping up. Thank you so much to all of you for hanging around for 2 hours. In particular, thank you to Laura, Mel, Cindy and Ryan, and to Abby for helping out. But yeah, unless anyone's got any final points, final plugs, you can plug away as well. You've got 100 people here to talk to still. Otherwise, yeah, please do join the Real Bread campaign. Please do take our survey, and please do get involved in Real Bread Week at the end of the month. But any last points, anyone?
No, it has been fantastic, guys. So thank you very much, and thank you, Chris. It's really fun to work with you. I actually have been enjoying very much this. And this is the whole idea. Let's go and connect and like kind of support each other. We're a lovely community, and we keep doing whatever, you know, like we make bread. We love what we do. So it would be great if you just carry on doing these kind of things and let Chris know. Oh, and maybe just donate £1 for the Real Bread campaign, so they can carry on doing these kind of things, and making bread stronger. You know, real bread, sorry, stronger.
Yeah, thanks to everybody. It's been really nice getting to know everybody a little bit more. And, you know, like if there are any other questions come about, I'm happy to field questions later. But thank you for this great opportunity, and nice meeting everybody. I want to come visit everybody's bakery.
Oh, me too. I want to come and visit everyone's.
You guys know Mel is actually from here. It's just like, you know, she's faking the American accent.
There was a bit of a twang.
I did. I grew up in the Manchester area, but I've been here for a really long time. And I think the Zoom lighting makes me look younger. I'm actually getting on a bit.
Laura's asked you to say banana, Mel.
Oh, yeah. So can't, banana, garage, there's still,
There
you
you
know,
go.
aluminium.
There you go. No, thank you very much for everyone coming, and thanks for inviting me to speak as well. Yeah, it's been very, very, very interesting. Really great. We are such a lovely bunch, the baking crowd.
Also, Laura, when you said bits and bobs, my boss sent me a text right away saying bits and bobs, because I say that all the time.
Oh, really?
Brian, show us your dog again. Come on.
Frankie.
That lovely dog.
One other question. What now we're degenerating into chat? I mean, you're all welcome to stay around for a bit longer, you know. I mean, but yeah, well, now we've kind of finished the official bit and start talking about dogs and whatever else. Someone said, "Is this being recording being shared?" Yes, that's the plan.